I've yet to meet a storyteller on the level of Cormac McCarthy. Not only did the man have the vocabulary of an encyclopedia collection, but he also had a drill sergeant-like command of that vocabulary, a fluency almost inhuman. The breadth of his understanding was indicative of a wisdom I hadn't before found in literature, and am unlikely to ever find again. McCarthy is one of only a handful of writers whose work I believe could actually change someone's life on a fundamental level. Most people know him for Blood Meridian, which is an incredible book, an absolute 11 out of 10, but Blood Meridian wasn't the book that broke me. That honor belongs to another title. No Country for Old Men was written in 2005, almost 20 years after Blood Meridian. It follows a 30-something everyman named Llewellyn Moss, who happens to run up on a drug deal gone wrong while hunting in the desert. His greed proves a fatal mistake when he finds a briefcase of money and, instead of leaving well enough alone, takes off with the spoils. But unbeknownst to him, there's a transponder hidden in the briefcase, and you can rest assured the cartel won't stop until they get what's theirs. That's a very surface-level synopsis. You may be thinking, this sounds like a pulpy thriller you'd find in the bargain bin at Walmart. And, left in the wrong hands, it could have easily turned out that way, but somehow McCarthy managed to take this simple Hollywood B-grade plot and turn it into an existentially poignant work of art. It helps that, contrary to the conclusion you've likely made, Llewellyn is not the main character. That would be Ed Tom Bell, the old-timer sheriff looking to find Moss before the cartel does. Ed Tom is a simple-spoken man, but he's seen a great many things, and he tells of these things in brief interjections all throughout the book. Whether they relate directly or distantly to the overarching plot, there's always a point of contact that makes them welcome. They lend deeper insight into an otherwise pretty straightforward narrative. Ed Tom, his thoughts, his conversations. He's a relic of a bygone era, a man who feels desperately out of place in the modern world. He fails to understand the madness and brutality and hedonism around him, but he also recognizes that such things can't be understood. Not really. So with a resigned acceptance, he plods on, world-weary and devoted. Ed Tom is, frankly, what makes the book special, but there's another anomaly too. This one, possibly supernatural. If you're familiar with this book or the movie it inspired, you've likely heard of this gentleman here, Anton Chigurh. He's the dude that rocks the Lord Farquaad hairdo and kills people with a captive bolt pistol. One thing I've noticed, Anton has kind of become the face of this franchise, since people got wise to what a great villain he is. Even before I engaged with No Country, I knew about Anton. If you've never heard of No Country, chances are you've still heard of Anton. Anton is the assassin sent to kill Moss and retrieve the stolen briefcase, but he's far from the typical hitman archetype. He's menacing, sure, but he's also genuinely curious. He enjoys thoughtful conversation with those he's about to kill, and at times he's just plain odd. There's an ominous undercurrent to his presence, and it becomes more evident the more page time he gets. The movie doesn't delve as deep as the book regarding what Anton is. In the movie, he speaks like a psychopath. In the book, he speaks like an alien. It's clear Anton views himself as an agent of fate, something that transcends morality and mortality alike. He could just be a regular flesh and blood guy with a grandiose sense of himself, or he could be death. I've heard that theory floating around. I tend to agree with that theory. Read the conversation he has with Carla Jean. You'll see the movie cut a lot. One famous staple of Chigurh's character is his reliance on a good old-fashioned coin toss to decide a person's fate. This removes all responsibility from him, in his eyes, and instead places the blame on fate itself. He is simply the mediary, an appendage, dispatched to maintain order and balance. In a way, he's beholden to the coin in his hand. If a potential victim calls it incorrectly, he has to shoot them, regardless of personal compunction. In both the movie and the book, you can tell he really wants to shoot the gas station attendant, but the coin prevents him from doing so. Conversely, in the book, less so in the movie, he really doesn't want to shoot Moss's young wife, Carla Jean. For how ruthless his movie iteration made him out to be, book Anton is fairly emotional with the handling of Carla Jean's murder, at least by his standard. It's the most emotional we see him, and it's no coincidence that conversation is probably the best scene in the whole novel. Still, no personal responsibility is ever taken. His beliefs are rattled but not dispelled, which brings me to an observation I find fairly interesting. There's a glaring dichotomy between Sheriff Bell and Anton. This book is unique in that the main character and the antagonist never actually meet. Anton is a shadow that Ed Tom is condemned to chase. He's the hurricane Ed Tom never sees happen, but is always on hand to clean up after. And while Ed Tom, the protagonist, takes responsibility for every last citizen in his jurisdiction, even when they leave the technical bounds of that jurisdiction, Anton, the antagonist, counters this above and beyond approach. He shoulders zero responsibility, putting it all on fate. There's a war of opposites here, all in versus all out. Faith in free will and human control versus faith in fatalism. At its core, No Country is a book about fate, but it's also a book about responsibility, the consequences of dodging it, the consequences of indulging it, and the consequences of being caught in the middle. I find this very interesting, and I think if Anton isn't actually death, this observation may hold some weight. On the other hand, if Anton actually is beholden to something greater than himself, or if he's a metaphor altogether, that changes everything. You can't really assign responsibility to a metaphor. In that case, the entire focus would shift to Ed Tom, and the foremost theme would become futility, the tides of change promised by a fast-approaching future, and what that means for us, particularly for those heading into old age. For all the physical violence on Llewellyn's end, there's a certain passive battle that takes place in Ed Tom's arc. One man versus looming obsolescence, one man versus the knowledge that one day he'll be gone, and things will carry on as they were, the chaos, the evil, only he won't be there to fight them anymore. This looming obsolescence troubles him deeply, before he comes to realize he's put too much stock in his own importance. Sheriff Bill recognizes the vanity in thinking he's the only one capable of protecting his town. He realizes that there will come more to fight, long after he steps aside. Decades down the line, there will still be more old men just like him, outcasts in the foreign land called future. It's here that he triumphs over the fear, the specter of fate and death and obsolescence, and learns to enjoy what time he has, with his wife, with his horses. And in doing so, you could almost say he beats Anton, or at least the idea of Anton. No physical meeting or altercation necessary. I don't know, you could literally write a novel on this novel. There's that many interpretations. But with every generation growing softer and weaker than the last, will holding the line be viable? By now we, the audience, see Ed Tom as a pretty strong character, what he's been through, what he's survived, how he's handled it all, but we quickly realize that Ed Tom doesn't quite see himself the same way. The book closes with him describing two dreams he had, the latter of his father. He follows his father on horseback, his father holding a torch to guide the way. There's a reverence for the old ways here, an idealized strength Ed Tom is trying to pursue, but he just can't keep up. His father goes on ahead, and the light vanishes. Ed Tom keeps moving, with the expectation his father will be waiting for him up ahead, but he wakes before he can find him, and he realizes that the old ways and their keepers are gone, forever out of reach. Yeah. Friendly reminder that this book is about a dude with a briefcase running from hitmen. Definitely not Hollywood schlock. The ending is very bittersweet. Ed Tom has overcome his adversary, so to say, but acceptance only brings him so much closure. His subconscious is still rife with a longing that can't be repressed, a longing too deeply, desperately human for any philosophy or platitude to assuage. He wants to live, to matter. He seems to waver in his resolution and vacillate back to this place of gentle defeat. His final words are almost haunted.
And in the dream I knew that he was going on ahead. He's fixing to make a fire somewhere out there in all that dark and all that cold. And I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. And then I woke up.
And we're left with that. That's all we get. But there's a that's what she said joke in this book, so 1 out of 10. Nah, but seriously, much like Blood Meridian, it's 11 out of 10, easy. Something I've noticed, now that I've read No Country, I was expecting Anton to be my favorite character hands down. Much to my surprise, that didn't happen. My favorite character ended up being Ed Tom, and for as much creative inspiration as I gleaned from Anton, Ed Tom ended up helping me to shape one of my favorite characters in my own writings, to give him a certain Weltschmerz, a certain old man air that he was missing. Also, sorry for butchering the German. Anyone who watches me likely knows I struggle to pronounce English words, let alone words from other languages. I do feel I'm a better writer since I started reading McCarthy, and I'd recommend studying him on a more technical, prosaic level, if you're in the same boat as me, i.e. a burgeoning wannabe author. You'll be wiser for it, and in that pursuit of wisdom, you'll honor the legacy of one of its greatest advocates.